Welcome to America Uncanceled. I'm Mercedes Schlatt. Matt is still at CPAC hungry, and we'll be giving you an update from his trip so far, where he's meeting with a lot of these Hungarian leaders, and they're tackling these global issues that are happening. And I think it's going to be a great, so far he's telling me that it's been a great trip, and I can't wait to get an update from Matt because I haven't seen him in like 2 or 3 weeks. He's literally been traveling across the country, helping candidates get elected, and also, of course, continuing to build our grassroots army as we get closer to the midterm elections. But there is a lot going on. We'll also talk about the Pennsylvania races from last night. That's been an interesting situation, which I think will be very telling. But right now, I'd like to bring to the show Congresswoman Yvette Herrell. She's the Congresswoman from the great state of New Mexico, and really want to talk about an issue that I don't think enough people are talking about, which is that of the southern border. Congresswoman, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate this.
So we were just talking this morning about that you were literally got out of a breakfast with a former DEA official talking about this crisis that so many people are not addressing, but something that's impacting every single community in America. And that's this crisis with fentanyl and obviously drug overdoses that are literally impacting Americans every day. Tell us about the meeting, tell us about what you learned, and tell us about why we need to stay very alert on this issue.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is a subject we talking about. Just had breakfast with retired DEA agent Derek Maltz. He is now really doing a lot of good in terms of educating the public. He's working with Mark Morgan and others as they travel around and talk about the border crisis. But of course, the fentanyl just plays right into that. And he made some good points. You know, over 100,000 people overdosed on fentanyl last year, but no one's talking about it. Why aren't we talking about the Hispanics, the Black Americans, you know, the Asian Americans, all these different races and Anglo Americans that are dying from this fentanyl, from the overdoses that we're seeing at college level, all the way, Mercedes, from 13-year-olds to 45-year-olds getting access to this drug and sometimes not even understanding or knowing. But he made a good point. Why aren't we talking about it in schools? You know, they're happy to talk about CRT, but they're not happy to talk about the dangers of this fentanyl. And it's interesting to think that here we have a nation that's not only under attack with the inflow of illegals, but the influx of these narcotics and fentanyl that coming across the southern border.
Right, and I think what people have to understand, it's like it just takes a little bit of fentanyl to kill someone. You know, and I know of individuals who have lost loved ones, you know, young teenagers, young adults that literally ended up, you know, taking a medicine and it was laced with fentanyl, taking a drug that was laced with fentanyl, and they died. And it is this tragedy that's happening over and over and over again. And I think that I could tell you when President Trump was in office, this is something that we talked about all the time. He took really made this a priority in his administration to address this issue and stop the flow of drugs that were coming into America illegally. And then now all of a sudden, Congresswoman, we've got the drug cartels in charge of our southern border. What are you hearing on the ground? Because obviously this impacts states like New Mexico. I think it pretty much impacts states across the country in terms of the drug cartels really basically taking control of our southern border, while our border patrol agents, basically their hands are tied behind their backs.
Their hands are tied because of this administration's inability or unwillingness to make good decisions that would protect American sovereignty and provide help, boots on the ground for the men and women that are doing the best they can with limited resources on the border. But you're right, because we've been saying this for months. Every state's a border state. And now what we have to admit is every sheriff is a border sheriff, because we're seeing this uptick in drugs going way into the interior. And you're right. The cartels are the ones winning the war on everything. They are getting paid tons of money. Our kids are dying. Our families are dying. Our streets are now being infused and infected with this disease called overdosing on fentanyl, and we're doing nothing about it. And I'm really proud of the fact that a group called Families Against Fentanyl has written a letter to this administration. I'm not sure what the response will be, but there is now growing awareness for the dangers of fentanyl. And the reality is we're letting the Chinese sit back while the cartels run the show and bring this poison into our streets, into our country. And we have to have this conversation. And again, Mercedes, it just kind of plays right into this porous border, this open border that we have, and this concern of Title 42 going away in just another week.
That's right. And I'd like to play this video from Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He's the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Let's take a listen.
Of the personnel of the Department of Homeland Security to bear. It is very important to note that while, of course, we are preparing for the end of Title 42, based on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's decision that it will end on May 23rd, that does not mean that the border is open beginning on May 23rd. We continue to enforce the laws of this country. We continue to remove individuals who do not qualify for relief under the laws of this country.
I don't know about you, Congresswoman, and I don't use this word lightly, but it's like his statement is, it's a pack of lies. The mere fact he's saying that we continue to enforce the laws, that's not accurate. The fact that he continued to say, well, this does not mean that the border is open. I mean, let's be real. By ending Title 42, that of course is going to be another magnet that's going to encourage vulnerable individuals, illegal immigrants to cross the border. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The fact that this secretary can lie to the American people so easily. I mean, he came to Congress 2 weeks ago and said he had operational control over the border. We all know they've never had control over the border. In fact, President Trump had control over the border, but this administration has lost all control. But to lie not only to Congress, but to the American people, and then say that they're enforcing the laws, they are clearly not. That's why we're seeing an uptick of up to 8,000 people, coming across the border. And when they do away with Title 42, we're going to see over 18,000 people a month coming across. But this is why we have over 2 million illegals. And believe me, these numbers, especially like when you start discussing gotaways and those type of numbers, those are underreported. We all know that. Morale of the Border Patrol agents is the lowest it's ever been. I've asked our governor in New Mexico to please deploy the National Guard troops to the southern border to help with this crisis. She refuses to do that. But interestingly enough, Mercedes, I went to our southern border on Good Friday, and I did meet some National Guard troops. They were from Florida. They weren't even from the state of New Mexico. And that tells me that governors around this nation know how serious this is. But, our governor is willing to turn the blind eye, just as this administration. It's unfair to the people that live in and around the border. It's unfair to law enforcement, and it's unfair to the people of America that this administration would out and out lie about their control over the border, when indeed we can all see there's absolutely nothing but chaos and crisis happening.
That's right. And at the end of Title 42, they predict 18,000 illegal immigrants coming through the border every day, which is a large number. And you also talk about what impact this has to property owners and to those who live on the border. You tweeted out this image of this 2-year-old girl that was abandoned by smugglers. They basically, the property owner called the mom, and apparently the mom was very nonchalant and just expects the U.S. government to get her daughter to her. I mean, literally abandoning children at the border. This is what the human traffickers, this is what the smugglers do. And I just find this to be shocking. What's your response to this in terms of how the human traffickers are using the children?
Well, it's a shame and it's sad, and my heart goes out to them. And here we are, a double standard. If you did that, you would be arrested, you would go to court, you'd probably go to prison or jail, you'd have some type of consequence. And yet we're rolling out the red carpet for people who are breaking the law to get here. They're breaking the law, getting here, then giving carte blanche in terms of our laws, given medical, they're given travel, they're given a place to live. We are putting more care and concern into this people breaking the law to get here than we are the people that are in this country trying to make ends meet, our homeless veterans, those in our own nation that have behavioral health or issues that need addressing. It makes no sense that we're holding the American people to a double standard. But I believe, Mercedes, that the people of this country are starting to understand that they are not treated anymore like first-class citizens, but rather second-class citizens. And oh, by the way, they're footing the bill for this exorbitant amount of money that we're spending on this illegal crisis down at our southern border.
So look, I'm feeling very optimistic about the midterm elections because obviously I think we've seen the Biden administration and the Democrats truly in a weakened position going into the midterm elections. What's your expectation, God willing, if the Republicans gain control of the House and the Senate, of what they can do to try to put pressure on the Biden administration to get a handle on the southern border?
Yeah, that's great. And what I am very proud of the House members for doing is Leader McCarthy has already set up task forces. So we have one for obviously like Homeland Security, the border security, energy, etc. We're already working on awesome policies that will help the American people, not hurt them. And I think when we come in November, take the House back, take the Senate back, and are prepared and ready to fight for our nation and put Americans first, I think we'll see real opportunity. And let's put this president in a position to have to say no to the American people once and for all. I think we have some great pieces of legislation that'll come out of these task forces, and we will be ready to hit the ground running January 2023 to put the American people back on track to be number one, to get our economy going again, secure our border, and make sure that we are protecting the sovereignty of our nation and our energy independence.
Because as we're talking about the economy, and I do believe that's going to be the top issue going into midterm elections. I mean, everyone's talking about the high gas prices. Everyone's talking about this baby formula shortage. Today it was reported in the New York Times that 2 children have been hospitalized because of the formula shortage. This was in a Memphis hospital where these 2 children, they weren't absorbing the nutrients properly because they don't have access to specific formula they need. Yvette, this drives me insane because we are at a point that this should not happen in America. And so the mere fact that this has gotten out of control and the Biden administration and the FDA, they've been, quote unquote, talking about it, but never informed parents, I think is one of the biggest disgraces that we have seen in this presidency. Your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more. And again, this is about putting Americans last. They knew this was happening back in October of 2021. There was no conversation to discuss how they were going to make arrangements or make sure that formulas were available after a company that produces over 40% of this formula was going to put basically on hold. What are we doing taking care of the American people, our children? But listen, Mercedes, we've written now 2 letters to the president. We're saying, what's the FDA doing? Where are you guys at with this process? When are we going to see these items lifted so that they can get back to processing, if indeed they can? And then on the other hand, we're saying, what are we going to do for backup plan? There is no backup plan. What we do know is there are pallets of formula being stashed in places like Oklahoma and Florida, ready to be used at the border when Title 42 goes away. So we will feed those immigrants coming across with children, and God bless them, because I know, and you know, a lot of them want to come here for a better life, but they have to do it legally. But when we're going to put the value of those breaking our laws over the value of those that live here, own businesses, the American workers, the American families, shame on us and shame on this administration for not taking action back in October when we knew this was going to happen.
Well, I want to thank you, Congresswoman Yvette Herrell. You are just such a gem. You have a 100% rating, CPAC rating, which is really hard to get. I think it's maybe you and like a couple of others. So you work hard and are such an incredible voice and really an inspiration for all of us in fighting back against the radical agenda of the left and making sure that we preserve this great country and our freedoms. So I want to thank you so much for joining us, and really looking forward to seeing you soon.
You will, and thank you so much, and thank you for all you and Matt do to make our country great, and we just appreciate all your hard work. So
keep up the great fight. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to America Uncanceled, and I hope you enjoyed the interview with Yvette Herrell. She is like one of my favorites. It's great to see all these women really engaged in politics, and it's really inspirational, I think, for all of us. But I want to take you to CPAC Hungary, where Matt Schlapp has a quick update.
CPAC Hungary. And America, don't worry, don't despair. America's on the way back. America has woken up. This is a time for fighters. So there's no greater time for this CPAC movement of freedom and individual rights to flourish. And I look forward to that happening in the great country of Hungary. God bless you and thank you very much.
Well, I got to tell you, I really do miss him. It's been a lot of long weeks without him, but I know that he's doing great work to expand the conservative movement and fight for freedom, not only in America, but across the globe. And remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all those horrible social media outlets, at M. Schlapp, at Mercedes Schlapp, at CPAC. We're also on Truth Social, which is a good one. To make sure that you're following with what we are up to. There's a lot going on. We're going to be having movie premieres in certain cities. We'll keep you posted on that. We're also making sure that our shows are going to be on a podcast, which will get you more information so you can tune in anytime at your leisure, whether it's at conservative.org or on the podcast. We're very excited about this, and we want to stay connected with all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back tomorrow.